Recently, I've been trying to figure out how to plan my novel structure with Save the Cat. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and many people have tried those many different ways, but sometimes you just need that one method that works for you. And the last time I did little cards, which I quite enjoyed doing, I did it physically. This time around, I really wanted to have something I could take with me, and if I'm not at home staring at my structure that I did physically on a corkboard, I still know what it is. The only way for me to do that was to try and figure out what program I could use to make it work. And when I realized that the programs out there just weren't working out for me, I decided to use my other daytime job, I want to say, as a resource. So I'm a graphic designer by day, and I use Figma in a lot of cases, mainly for digital design. And I realized that Figma is the perfect tool for me to do this. If you've never heard of Figma before, it is a design program. It allows you to create mainly, I want to say, digital design, but you can absolutely also create printable pieces. The reason why Figma became industry-wide is because you can pretty much use it for free. And it essentially has two versions: the premium version, where most people who are, directing an agency, art directors, etc., in actual creative agencies, they're going to pay for those features, but most individuals will likely have the free version because you can do a lot with it as long as you don't need to publish it under the name of a specific project. If you use it as a freelancer and you have clients and you want to share things with them, you are also likely to pay for the premium version. I hope that intro was short enough and sort of gives you a quick overview of what Figma is. And if you use Canva primarily, I'm pretty sure you can achieve really similar things. I don't use Canva, so I can't confirm this for you, but I've seen ads here and there, and it looks like Canva has a really similar board setup that I'm going to show you with Figma. So the first thing you need to do is very simply sign up, and that is what I'm doing here because I have a personal account with my real name, and I just wanted to create an account for my pseudonym that I use for this channel and as an author, as a writer. And you can go from one account to another like you can on Instagram. Then you'll see the starter versus the professional versions, and you just go with the starter version, which is free. And then you have two types of design things that you can do. You can create a design file or FigJam board. And what you want to do for this specifically, this setup that I was doing here, I used a FigJam board. You basically create anything in your drafts, and you can still use them and you can still share them, and you can see prototypes and everything if you were to do an actual design file. But because it's in your drafts, it remains in the free version. So just showing to you what the initial FigJam board stuff looks like, it very quickly gives you some ideas. So you can use templates, and they have a bunch of them, and I'm pretty sure some of them must be really good and some of them might even work for this specific purpose. But I went ahead and just selected no template for this. So FigJams or boards or whatever are a little bit more think tank type of files. So they're not meant to be the design work, and you're not really meant to do your design work in there, and you don't have the tools for it. They're more to collaborate with other people. It's a little bit more like a draft of something before you start the actual design work. So you have another spot where you can get to the templates if you're like, oh, I actually would like to use one of those, because they have very useful things like timelines and things like that you could want to also use as a writer. In this case, I just went ahead with a basic board. You have some tools at the bottom that you can use to create whatever you want within this board, including sections, tables, arrows, all of that. And I went ahead and created four sections, my bad, for all of the acts, essentially Act 2 being split in two sections. So I created a section for Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and then Act 3. And you basically have an infinity of space that you can work with. So I went ahead and created my first section for Act 1, decided on a color that I wanted, and I went back to my notes that I was at the time still doing on Save the Cat Writes a YA Novel, because that is essentially the structure I went ahead with, is the Save the Cat one. There's other structures out there and you could absolutely do the same thing with them, but I really just wanted to use that one because that's the one I was studying at the time and sort of taking notes and trying to use to fix my own structure in my current novel that I'm currently writing, called, you know, Space Princess Project, because I don't have an official title yet. So I was just checking this image that I used in those notes, which has all of, you know, the little tabs that I need. So the beats for each of the acts, and also how many scenes you have for each beat. So they don't have the actual number, but you tend to have one scene beats or multiple scenes beats. So either you need one card or you need multiple cards, and then that sort of depends on how many scenes you have within that one beat. So I went ahead and started creating, okay, I'm gonna need my opening image. I think I'm fiddling around for a little bit with like the size of my post-its, what they look like, the size of my font and everything. You can sort of see the tools I'm using. There's nothing really counterintuitive about this. Everything is quite easy and simple, and you can just go ahead and play with it, and there's not that many tools to play with, so the limitations of the FigJam boards make it easier to use for anyone who wants to use it, I would say. So after I was done with my multiple scenes for the beats that I needed in Act 1, so for instance the setup I put 3 cards in there, the debate I put 6, but you know, it can change, it doesn't have to stay that way. You can align them. Then I think you can also essentially click on one and then you'll have little plus signs on the left, right, top and bottom of the card of your post-it, and if you select the plus it will create a new one next to it, so that you have multiple cards creating in a row or in a column, whatever you need. And then I go ahead with Act 2B, just changing the color scheme for each of the sections, putting in the All is Lost, the Dark Night of the Soul, etc. And then I finally get to Act 3 and adding in my finale with the 5 steps that are recommended by Jessica Brody, so like the High Tower Surprise, etc. And then I get to a point where I've pretty much done all of the items that I need on this list of different beats. And yeah, this is the final beat sheet that you can basically click on the title that you've set up at the top and select duplicate, and then you rename the copy, and then you can use one of these copies for each of the beat sheets that you need. So if you need 3 for the same story, you can have multiples, but you could also just select everything within, you know, the actual FigJam, copy and then paste it to the right of it, and then you have 2 beat sheets for the same story, but like 2 different characters, for instance. So there's a few options that you can have fun with on Figma, and I hope that I'm showing you enough and explaining enough of how it works. It's very intuitive, it is very easy to use, and you can probably do something very similar in Canva as well, which I know more people who aren't designers tend to use as well. I'm sure you guys could tell me if there are other programs out there that do the same thing, but this is the one that I find the easiest and the most satisfying, and that works with my skill set because I'm a designer and I use Figma. If you feel like you can tackle Figma jam boards, or whatever they're called, Fig Jams, then I'm pretty sure you will be fine with it and you can absolutely use it as well. If you feel more comfortable just doing this kind of setup in another program, I also understand. On this note, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it and you'd like me to do more in the same vein, let's say to do a timeline or things like that, I can absolutely do that as well. And leave a comment, let me know. I always try to respond down below as well. Leave a like, consider subscribing, all that jazz, ring that bell, etc. I'll see you guys in the next one.